What's up, everybody? Soul here with another Sword of Convallaria video, and today we're going to be taking a look at rank 13 skills, ascension skills if you will, and I'll be breaking them down into a tier list. We're going to discuss shortly what skills are, what they do at their different levels, and how they affect the characters they're available to, and I'm going to put them on a tier list based on that. Obviously, as a just short disclaimer, all ascension skills enhance the characters that they're available to inherently. There's no two ways about it. I'm just simply going to go through and give you my advice on whether or not they're worth the time and investment, because it's a big one. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So we all know that you got to go into Pioneering Challenge to get the ascension skills materials, and you've got to grind that out. If you want a separate video on that, let me know. I'll be glad to take a look at it and deep dive and give you some more information on that. Chronosphere, big shout out to him. He's been blasting through it, and man, he is tremendous, and I can't wait to discuss it with him and possibly even work with him to get you all a video on that. With that said, let's take a look at the rank 13 skills that we have available to us, these old characters with new skills. Obviously, we've got Tidon, we've got Cole, Miguel, Xavier, Iggy, and OG Rowea. We've got Guzman, Beryl, Mytha, Samantha, Garcia, and Lily Will. But that's not the only ones we've got. We also have general ascension skills. I'll show you that right here. On my SP and Nana, I have United Strength level 3. This is a general ascension skill. And so ascension skills are up there. They're after rank 13. You unlock them. And so they cost quite a bit of material. We're going to get out of SP and Nana. We'll take a look at someone like, let's just say, we need another rank 13. Let's take a look at Miguel, because he's got 2. He's got Valiant Vanguard as another one. In order to activate it, as you can see, there's 3 levels, but we need to spend 20 materials to unlock that. However, that's just to get to base level of that skill, level 1. Level 2, it's, I believe, 100, and then in level 3, it's 180 to unlock that, which is a huge amount of resources, a heavy investment. So, starting with general ascension skills, let's talk about them all, go through and discuss which ones are best. Starting with accumulated power. Accumulated power is, it starts with, at 1 star, when the unit has 4 more buffs, the damage dealt is increased by 4% and the damage taken is reduced by 4%. At 2 stars, that increases to 8%, and at 3 stars, that increases to 12%. Now, this is available to Karis, Gloria, and Fekal. Pretty decent stuff right here from this, but overall, it's kind of meh, in my opinion. Getting 4 buffs isn't necessarily hard, but also isn't something that's going to constantly be happening. I think Fekal, it's the worst on him out of each one. It's absolutely passable. You shouldn't try to get it on Fekal. But for Gloria, it's pretty decent, and I think it's worth pursuing. For Karis, I think it's right there in the middle. It's mid. So overall, I would absolutely rank this skill to be a tier 2 ascension skill. Up next after that is Bravery and Adversity. And so this is at 1 star. When in an injured state, damage dealt is increased by 5% and damage taken is reduced by 5%. When in an injured state with 2 stars, it's increased to 10%. And then at 3 stars, it's when in an injured state, it's increased to 15%. That does include dying, by the way. It's not specifically injured. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. It's usually always the case. With that said, this is made available to Guzman, Kaya, and OG Rowea. Now for Guzman and OG Rowea, they already have ascension skills that do a really good job probably, and so we don't really want a general ascension skill like this on them typically, especially with such a heavy investment behind it. However, Kaya doesn't have an ascension skill, and I don't know when we'll get one. This is a pretty decent skill for her. It's about mid, and overall for that reason I'd rank it mid in general. And so for me, this is a tier 3 ascension skill. Up next is Path of Firepower Strike. And so at 1 star, for each target hit, the damage is increased by 4% up to a maximum of 12%. At 2 stars, you get an attack boost of 5% flat out. And then your damage is still the same up by 4% for each target, up to 12. And then at 3 stars, now you're up by 8, up to 24 for each target hit with that same base attack of 5%. This really pops off at 3 stars. It's a huge investment, but man, it is good. This is available to Xavier, Beryl, and Luvada. Now, Beryl and Xavier just got another Ascension skill, so this isn't something you necessarily want to chase for them unless you're just absolutely fascinated with AoE skills on them and you think it would do better. You know, we'll get into their skills later. For Luvada, who does not have a unique Ascension skill, this is a fantastic option, especially if you main Luvada and you really want to do a lot with her. I would consider this an absolute worthwhile grab for her, as you are getting a lot from it. She's already doing AoE and hitting hard. You want to do more of it and do it better. Absolutely pursue this and feel comfortable in doing so. And so for that reason, I'd rank this a tier 1 Ascension skill, specifically for Luvada. Next is Path of Striking from Highland. This is at 1 stars. When attacking from Highland, the damage is increased by 10%. At 2 stars, the attack is increased by 5%. When attacking from Highland, damage is increased by 10%. And then at 3 stars, the attack is increased by 5%, flat out. And when you're attacking from Highland, damage is increased by 20%. Now, this is made available to Iggy, Lilywheel, and Homa as of right now. However, Iggy and Lilywheel get their own unique Ascension skills, which are pretty notable within their own right. Homa, on the other hand, could benefit from this, and if you're utilizing her, that base attack is decent. It is 5%. I would want more personally with that huge investment, but there's nothing wrong with getting this up to 2 stars just to get that. 120 materials, mind you. But if you're interested in it for the Highland attack, I don't think it's really going to do a lot for you. It's very niche, and so this has the potential to be decent, but overall is just niche okay. And so I would rank it a tier 4 on the tier list. Up next is Path of Valor and Ferocity. This is when attacking enemies in a healthy state, the damage is increased by 10%. At 2 stars, you get a flat attack of 5% boost. And then when you're attacking those enemies, healthy enemies, it's the same 10%. And then at 3 stars, you get the same flat 5% attack boost, but now when you're attacking healthy enemies, you get a boost of 15%. And so this is available to Flavia, Hasna, Nono-Will, and Nungal. For me, this is not a strong ability at all. It is overall passable, and so I would rank it tier 5. Path of Overcoming the Enemy is next. At 1 star, when attacking enemies countered by the unit's roll, damage is increased by 10%. At 2 stars, attack is increased by 5% flat period. And then you get the same 10% boost for attack and counter rolls. And then at 3 stars, now you get 20% boost for attacking those counter rolls, so that same flat 5%. This is available to Garcia, Shaklulu, and Somona. And in my opinion, I can't really recommend this. I think it's a bit niche. It's a huge investment for something that really, that flat attack rate's kind of nice, but that's it. It's just mid. And so I can't really recommend this, and for that reason, I think this is a tier 5 skill. Up next is Peak Form. At 1 stars, when in an unharmed state, damage dealt is increased by 4% and damage taken is reduced by 4%. At 2 stars, when unharmed, it's increased to 8% for both damage taken and damage dealt. And then at 3 stars, it's 12% damage taken and damage dealt when unharmed. This skill is made available to Agatha, Sophia, and Team Meteor. Now, none of these characters have a unique rank 13 skill right now, and I would argue they would all benefit from this in a decent fashion. Sophia, in my opinion, more so than the others, because she goes in, she's got a wonderful dodge. This is a fantastic ability to put on her, and you want her to be able to deal more damage, obviously, and to do more. And so this, for me, is phenomenal skill for her specifically. It's also really good on Agatha and does a great job on Team Meteor too. Team Meteor has a ton of shielding, so a lot of bulk. Definitely has a lot of ways to avoid damage, and Agatha has some ways to avoid damage, but also to heal damage. This is a fantastic general Ascension skill for all of them. For that reason, I rank it fairly highly at tier 1. Up next is Shadow Ambush Tactics. When performing a backstab, increase damage dealt by 10%. At 2 stars, it increases your attack by 5% flat, and you still get that same 10% boost for attacking from behind. And then at 3 stars, increase your damage by your attack. At 3 stars, your attack is still increased by 5%, and you increase damage by an additional 20% now, which is a pretty decent buff. This is only available to Cole, and honestly, I don't think it's necessary for Cole because Cole is going to get his unique ascension skill, which I think is better. And so for me, I can't really recommend this. When it's made available to other characters, there are some non-legendary characters it's available to. It's pretty decent. For me, I'd say it's a tier 4. It's a decent damage option, but overall passable. Up next is Sharp and Unrestrained. At 1 star, when the number of debuffs on the character is fewer than 2, damage dealt is increased by 4%, damage taken is reduced by 4%. At 2 stars, it's increased to 8%, and 3 stars is increased to 12%. This is available to Aisha, Dandelion, and Samantha. And so for me, this is a decent ability. You don't really want debuffs on your people anyways. It's kind of, it's all over the place. Now, for Aisha, you could argue that this is ideal because you want her to have a way to do some damage mitigation. She's doing a lot of tanking, and I would argue that that's definitely the case. Dandelion, more of the same. You want them to have the heals. It's just decent. But getting debuffed isn't uncommon. Keeping debuffs on you can be difficult. I don't know. It's just a bit niche. When you're under the line of fire and you're getting hit, debuffs happen. And so to lose the ability to accept that fire and handle it just because you're getting debuffs applied to you is a big hindrance. For me, this isn't an incredible skill. It's like, it's okay. And so for that reason, I would rank it tier 4. It's really not worth your investment, in my opinion. Tactics of Mobile Assistance is next. At 1 star, you increase your damage dealt outside of your unit's turn by 10%. At 2 stars, you increase your attack by a flat 5%, and the damage dealt outside your turn is still that 10%. And then at 3 stars, you get that same flat attack of 5%, but the damage you're dealing outside your turn is increased to 20%. This skill is made available to Momo, Alexi, and Ida. And for me, I think this is a phenomenal generic skill that absolutely does work on all of these characters. Specifically Momo, I think really gets a lot out of this because Momo's alert and how many times it procs. It's so phenomenal outside of her own turn. But Alexi and Ida do the same. Ida less so than Alexi in my opinion. Alexi, his range is more limited than Momo's. But either way, if you like these characters and you're using them and you're interested in this skill, you can feel very confident in leveling it up and getting it. I think this is a phenomenal skill for them. And so with that said, I think that this is a tier 0.5 ability. Up next is Undying Shelter's Wish. At 1 star, your magic defense is increased by 10%, and you reduce your magic damage taken by 10%. At 2 stars, it increases by your magic defense by 20%, and the damage taken reduced by 10%. And then at 3 stars, it's by 20% on both magic defense and magic damage taken being reduced. So this is phenomenal. However, it's only available to Coco, Estra, and Tristan. Now, for all of them, you could argue it's definitely beneficial and does a decent job. But specifically for Coco, who's going to be consistently and always taking lots of damage and isn't relying on an unlimited resolve or shielding and so on, I think this is a very good trait on her. It does a decent job. On Estra, I think it's passable. It's only mid. Estra's already kind of niche in that she's targeting quote-unquote mages. You want to deplete energy and this, that, and the third. This only mildly helps her. And then Tristan goes in, uses her unlimited resolve. It really doesn't matter how much she gets hit and how, because she's just not going to die. So it really doesn't make a huge difference for her. We want more damage on Tristan, not more defense, typically. And so this is good for Coco, and for that reason, I would rank this a tier 1 for her. Specifically, I would rank it lower for the others, and I'd say not to pursue it. Up next is United in Purpose. 1 star, if there are 3 or more allies within 3 tiles, you increase the damage dealt and reduce the damage taken by 4%. At 2 stars, it's increased to 8%. At 3 stars, it's increased to 12% if you have 3 or more allies within 3 tiles. This skill is made available to SP Inanna, Layla, Akambi, and SP Sophia. And in my opinion, for all of them, it's a phenomenal skill. I think this is really, really nice. A lot of people like to just ball up their units and move through a map. And man, you're getting a huge boost just for being near allies. It's really a very minimal requirement and a good amount of a boost. On SP Inanna in specific, this is absolutely insane. On Layla, it absolutely is great too, and it's hard to pass. Akambe and SP Sophia, you could argue it's also really good. Akambe, he's got his summons and things like that really provide that, so it's definitely decent on him. SP Sophia, the beauty of her, she can be anywhere on the map and heal, and so for her to have to be near the allies isn't necessarily the best thing in the world, but it's not uncommon for her to be. Either way, this skill is phenomenal and does a great job on all of them, but specifically SP Inanna and Layla benefit from it hard. Akambe in behind that, and then SP Sophia is a lower priority than them. I would overall rank this ability a tier 0.5 ability. Up next is Unyielding Stone Body. At 1 star, you increase your HP by 10% and reduce piercing damage taken by 10%. At 2 stars, you reduced piercing damage taken by 20% instead of 10. And at 3 stars, your HP is increased to 15% and you reduce piercing damage taken by 20%. This is available to Afra, OG Inanna, Convallaria, Leonid, Lutfi, Magnus, Mytha, Nergal, Nydia, and Tidon. Now, this is a pretty decent skill. It's a little niche that it has to be piercing damage, but it's one of the few ways we have to deal with piercing damage. There's not a lot, and so this is nice for that reason. And then that HP boost is undeniable. It's absolutely great to have, and so we always want HP, especially on our tanks and so on and so forth. Now Mytha's not really benefiting from this as much because she's got a unique skill that she can go after and pursue that you'd probably prefer to do that with. However, on these other characters, it can be pretty decent. It's not always good to have HP, but never necessarily great. And so Magnus, I'd argue, benefits from this a decent amount. Afra would probably benefit from this the most. She gets in, she's in the fray, she heals, and then you want her to have HP so she's bulky. Tidon has a unique skill, so we're not really worried about him. And then, yeah, Convallaria, OG Inanna, Leonid, Lutfi, Nergal, I think they're all in there. They do this thing. Nergal really benefit from this more than probably the others. Leonid probably just do decent. I'm going to ramble about this for a while. Overall, this is an interesting skill that seems to be pretty mid and pretty decent. I'm really not sure how to place it, and I had to think about it for a while. And in the end, sadly, I decided to go with a tier 4 ranking on this skill overall. I think Afra has a higher priority, but for most of these characters, the priority is fairly low. The HP is nice, but it's a huge investment just for some HP, and it's kind of passable. Afra, Nergal, Magnus, Leonid benefit from the most. Everyone else, meh. It's mid. Up next is Valiant Vanguard. At 1 star, when there are 2 or more enemies within 2 tiles of self, damage dealt is increased by 4% and damage taken is reduced by 4%. At 2 stars, this is increased to 8%, and at 3 stars, this is increased to 12%. This is available to August, SP Rawia, Rico, and Miguel. I think for August, SP Rawia, and Rico, this is a great trait to have. Absolutely does a job, and they're going to be in and around enemies all the time. For Miguel, this wouldn't be bad, but he's got a unique ascension ability that I think takes priority in my opinion, and that probably will always be the case when these units get their own unique ascension abilities. Problem is we don't know when, right? So if you really like using August, you don't want to wait months or a year for his ascension skill to come out. You probably want to have something in your pocket and using them now to make them more useful. And the same for Espirolia and Rico. So, and Rico definitely is not going to get a unique ascension skill anytime soon. They just came out. And for them, this general skill is phenomenal, in my opinion. And so, Miguel, I think it's passable, But for Espirituia, August, and Rico, I think this is something you can absolutely feel comfortable getting. I would rank this a tier 1 ability. And then last in the general skills is Will of Unbreakable Steel. At 1 star, your physical defense is increased by 10% and physical damage taken is reduced by 10%. At 2 stars, your physical defense is increased to 20%. At 3 stars, both your physical defense and physical damage taken are increased to 20%. Physical damage reduced, by 20%, not increased, reduced. So yeah, it's a 20% buff both on your physical defense and physical damage taken being reduced. That's absolutely massive. The only legendary unit we have that's getting this is Pamina. And on Pamina, I think this is a fantastic generic skill. She's not going to get her own unique skill for quite some time. We don't know when. And so this is a phenomenal thing to throw on her. If you like running Pamina and running Pamina all the time, I think you can feel comfortable investing in this and buying this and spending those precious resources on this and it do a great job for her. And so for that reason, I would rank this a tier 0.5 skill for her. Now for the exciting part. Now we're going to move up and we're going to take a look at the unique rank 13 skills, which these are pretty awesome. First up, we're going to take a look at Barrel's Rumble. At 1 star, her damage is increased by 10%. It's just a flat increase. It's pretty great. At 2 stars, her damage is increased by 10% still, but the damage against characters with Burn and or Ignite is increased by 10%, and both effects can stack, so a total of 30% with Burn, Ignite, and the flat 10%. Really big, good stuff right there. And then at 3 stars, her damage is flat out increased by 15%, and then that Burn, Ignite is giving an additional 15% for each. So potentially a total of 45% boosted damage. I have this skill at 2 stars personally on Beryl, and I've been using her with Levada, and she is melting people and doing great things. This is a phenomenal skill that I can highly recommend to anybody who enjoys using Beryl and having fun with her. And so for that reason, I rank this tier 0.5. I would rank it higher if it didn't require those burn tiles and was just as an outright, but she needs a little bit of synergy and teamwork to make this really pop off reliably, and so it is a tier 0.5 in my book. Next is Cole's Lone Blade's Edge, and so Cole at 1 star, when there are no allies within 3 tile radius, increases damage and crit damage by 15%. That alone is already pretty decent. However, at 2 stars, when there are no allies within a 2 tile radius, you increase the damage and critical damage by 15%. And so now you're reducing that radius that's required at 2 tiles. That is absolutely good because we don't want Cole to be in and away from enemies too much all the time because it's hard, especially later in the game. And then at 3 stars, you increase your damage and your crit damage by 15% still, but the energy cost of Wipeout is reduced by 1, and then the energy recovery condition of his Taste of Prey is now, no matter what, it's when enemies are defeated instead of hitting them from the back or the side. So getting that energy recovery is absolutely massive, and this is a fantastic thing to have on him. I think that this generic skill is really strong for Cole, but I want it to be better. Cole's problem is his lack of act again, and at 5 stars in his trait, you're getting what, a 1 turn, 2 turn cooldown for that. And so with a 1 turn cooldown at 5 stars, I think that's a huge investment for Cole to have a lot necessary to get that act again. And so I really wanted to see something in his unique skill, ascension skill, that took that away, that allowed him to act again every turn if he secures the kill. Having both requirements with the cooldown and to secure the kill is a lot. And for only to have an every other turn act again, when there are characters in the game that can act again every turn, that's tough. That makes it really hard for Cole to compete in damage and to keep up. And so I don't think that's fair to her, and I don't think her ascension skill quite gets her over the line as far as what it should be. However, it is absolutely good, and it does make her better. No two ways about it. And for that reason, I rank this Ascension skill tier 1. Up next is Guzman's Abyss Echo. And so this increases AoE damage by 30% at 1 star. At 2 stars, it increases AoE damage by the same amount of 30%, but when using the skill Devour Life, it no longer can be interrupted, and the cooldown is reduced by 1. So that's pretty decent. I don't know who all is out there using Guzman for that skill in particular, but I can't wait to test this and try it, especially at 3 stars. When using that Devour, can't be interrupted still, and you now gain a taunt. Now you're taunting all enemies within range. The skill cooldown is further reduced by 2 turns, and then that AoE damage is further increased by 30% when using the skill Devour Life, and it cannot be interrupted. It gains taunt, and the cooldown of the skill is reduced by 2 turns. I think I just said all that twice, but so sorry. Regardless, really good stuff from Guzman right there in this Abyss Echo. This looks like a phenomenal thing. Now, the cons and what it lacks. It doesn't give Guzman more bulk. It doesn't do anything to make him more tanky and more broad, and honestly, I think he's kind of lacking in that, especially introducing a taunt, which I love, but I want him to be more bulky when taunting, not just more damage dealing, if that makes sense. And so, or at least it'll give us a way to get more damage out. I mean, there is a reduction on the cooldown. It just feels like it's a half-hearted effort. It could do more to make him better. It still seems pretty great. It still seems interesting, but it leaves me kind of wanting more. And so for that reason, I'd rank this a tier 1 skill. Up next is Blood and Snare for Garcia at 1 star. For each stack of rotational acceleration, you increase your attack and defense by 1%. And then rotation acceleration becomes undispellable. So we already get a 4% boost from rotational acceleration, and then it stacks up to 9 times. So now this adds at 1%. And so now it's 5 times 9, a total of 45% at max at 1 star. So it's pretty decent. But at 2 stars, it now becomes 2%. So that's really, really nice. We're getting a pretty decent boost there with that. And then at 3 stars, now your rotational acceleration is increasing your attack and defense by another 3%. So a total of 7% per stack. So at 9 stacks, you're now getting a total of, what's that, 63% to her attack and defense. Pretty big. And then your rotational acceleration is still undispellable, but when you attack enemies with isolation, your skill multipliers increase by 30%. So that's fantastic. Garcia has a passive ability that inflicts isolate on enemies, and so now you're going to get a skill multiplier boost on all your skills when they have that isolate. Oh, really good stuff. That's going to give her a 150% attack damage boost on one of her attacks. It's going to make her her pool 100% damage outright. I mean, it's really good. For me, this is a phenomenal unique skill that absolutely gives Garcia some great utility and brings her back into the fold as far as what she can do, and gives her some really big numbers. I can't wait to experiment and test and see this full throttle. I've been hearing about it from a couple of our followers and people on the channel, so really excited to see this in practice personally and utilize it myself. For me, this is a tier 0 unique skill. Up next is Moment of the Hunt for Iggy. This is at 1 star, it ignores block. That's pretty big for Iggy. No two ways about it. It's nice. It's always nice to see our breakers have ignore block nowadays, and so it's good that he's finally got it with this. The effect duration of hunting preparation is increased by 1 turn, and when hunting preparation is active, your crit rate is increased by 10%. And so hunting preparation is a passive. It becomes active. It only is active until the next turn, so now it's active for 2. That's nice. And then that crit rate is always nice. At 2 stars, the only thing that's increased is that crit rate up to 15% instead of 10. That's decent. There's nothing wrong with that. And then at 3 stars, the effect duration of hunting preparation is still the same, increased by 1 turn. When a hunt preparation is active, your crit rate and critical damage are increased by 15% both. And then additionally, after performing an active attack, the unit can move an additional 3 tiles. Oh, this obviously is a benefit to Iggy and to all the Iggy players. It does make him better. There's no two ways about it. But man, they could have done more. I mean, they really could have, in my opinion. It's like they took a character that is been struggling to perform and to get the treatment it deserves, that all these other characters are getting, especially with power creep, and they have the opportunity to make him amazing, and they just made him more mid. Like, this is a big investment for a skill that honestly doesn't have a big return. And it's upsetting for me. Now, it does play in his mechanics. It allows him to get in and out of the fray and to have a lot of mobility and things like that. And so there is some utility there. But we're talking about a huge investment for 3 extra move. Like, at the end of a turn. That's tough. I want the Iggy players to get to me and tell me what you think down in the comments. And let me know what you think. But for me, this just doesn't seem like it's enough. And so I don't want to gripe and complain. I want Iggy to get love. That's all it is. I want Iggy to get the love he deserves. And I want to see him shine. And so all the valor, honestly. But regardless, with what we got, I have to rank this a tier 4 skill. Up next is Wind-Filled Bow for Lilywell. At 1 star, when the distance to the target is greater than or equal to 4, it increases your attack by 20%. And so we have to stop for a minute and acknowledge Lilywell has 1 skill that allows her to cast at a range of 4. However, she's got a passive that increases all of her range skills by 1 tile. So that basically, this rank 13 unique skill requires you to run that passive all the time. Take that into account. When you're now running that passive and this, you're going to have all your skills have basically a range of 4, including your basic attack. That's pretty big. It just, there's a hidden tax there. Just be aware of that. At 2 stars, when the distance to the target is greater or equal to 4, you increase your attack by 20% still, but after a single target attack, or after a single attack is what it says, you apply 2 layers of infection. And then at 4 stars, when that range is 4 or equal to 4 or greater, you increase your attack by 30% now. And then you're now inflicting 3 layers of infection. For me, this is pretty great. Lilywell doesn't have the most interesting gameplay in my opinion, but to give her more range and more damage for free and to let her do what she already does well, better, and more effectively is pretty big. And so this really is an exciting thing for her. It doesn't make her more interesting, but it definitely makes her more powerful, capable, and does a lot to boost her. Unlike Iggy's unique skill, I think this one actually really helps the character and does a lot for her. And so for that reason, I would absolutely rank this a tier 0.5 skill for Lilywell. Up next is Leave It to Mytha, of course, for Mytha. At 1 star, you increase your attack and defense by 15%. At 2 stars, you're still increasing your attack defense by 15%, but now you're increasing your healing effect by 40%. That's pretty massive. And then at 3 stars, it does all the same, but now after performing an attack, all skill cooldowns are reduced by 1 turn, with a maximum of 1 trigger per turn. So this gives her more bulk, it gives her more attack, and she's able to heal more. Oh, on top of all of that, when she does act and take an action and attack, she now is reducing the cooldown of all of her skills. That's pretty great. Overall, this is a fantastic skill for Mytha that you can feel comfortable investing in if you're playing Mytha and playing Mytha a lot. But it doesn't quite do a ton. It doesn't break the game. It doesn't really change her in a dramatic way. It just makes her more comparable to other units like Coco. Now she's able to come in and heal and do a much better job of that and to do it more reliably with those cooldowns. It also allows her to knock back and move enemies around more reliably and quickly with those cooldowns. And so it is pretty great, but it's like a great value great, which everybody calls Mytha the great value Coco. So they could have done more in my opinion, but it's not the worst either. So for me, I would rank this pretty mid, tier 2 skill. Next is Fierce Strike for Miguel. At 1 star, it increases attack by 10% flat. That's a pretty big boost. At 2 stars, not only is his attack increased by 10%, when performing an AoE attack, it transforms the terrain tiles into burning for 2 turns. So we have to talk about this because you all know I'm a Miguel fan. But his trait, this fixes his trait. His trait says all instances of damage are turned into, they scorch the enemy. And that's not what happens. And it frustrated me because not all instances of damage scorched my enemies. Really, really frustrated me. However, this unique skill makes it to where all AoE damage does legit burn the ground, regardless of it, whether it's unburnable or not. And it inflicts, obviously, the scorch on those enemies that aren't immune to it. It's massive. I use this all the time. I'm using it in Tower Adversity right now. It's everywhere. I absolutely love this. At 3 stars, the attack is increased to 20%, and then it's still burning everything for 2 turns on all AoEs. And all AoEs include Roaring Flint. It includes the Course of Fortune Terror Whisper when that AoE procs. And, of course, any and all other AoEs you can happen to slap on them and get. Mourner and whatnot. Massive. Massive. Can't say it enough. Absolutely massive. This skill is unbelievable. It makes Miguel so much fun. And it is, honestly, it feels game-breaking. It really changed the game for me. And I absolutely love playing Miguel even more. He is a powerful unit now because of this skill. And so I would rank this a tier 0 skill. I'd honestly put it higher than any other if I could. It's just unbelievable. Up next is Gel Dance for OG Rowea. This gives her an ignore block, which, once I said, we want that on all of our breakers. When tipsy, your attack is increased by 15%. The damage received is reduced by 15%. At 2 stars, it's all more or less the same. Except for now, you're getting a 10% boost to your critical damage as well. And then at 3 stars, now when tipsy, you're not only getting an attack and critical damage boost of 15%, and then damage received being reduced by 15%, but now you're getting a skill multiplier boost of 15%. For me, this is fantastic. We absolutely love to see Rowea do big numbers and hit hard. This is a character almost everybody has access to and can utilize, and she hits hard and does a great job. You want her to be tipsy all the time anyways, and you're getting heavily rewarded for it. Getting that skill multiplier boost is massive. She's got ways to attack quite a few times in a single turn, and so all of them are benefiting from that skill boost. And then not to mention her Haymaker ability, which is not literally called Haymaker, but her big hitting ability does boosted damage based on how many debuffs the enemy has, and now we're going to be able to smack for over 200% with this. Oh man, it's just massive. This is a fantastic, unique skill. Does a great job on OG Rowea, and I think you can feel confident investing in it if you play her. This is a tier 1 ability in my opinion. Up next is Sincere Protection Prayer for Samantha. This increases her magic attack by 10%. And increases the range of her aura, it says, her personality aura by 1 tile, but it's talking about her trait, where she's able to heal her allies. Of course, we're talking about her trait, Pious Prayer. It increases the range of that by 1 tile. At 2 stars, increases her magic attack by 12%, and increases the range of that aura, her trait, Pious Prayer, by 2 tiles. And then at 3 stars, it increases her magic attack by 15% and increases the range of her trait by 2 tiles still. And then when using a healing skill or triggering her Pious Prayer, it reduces the cooldown of all skills by 1 turn. And of course, this can be triggered up to 2 times per turn. There's a lot to unpack here. This unique skill is pretty great. It does a lot of really good things. Good magic attack boost, good increase of range for that healing, and then of course now you're reducing the cooldown of other abilities. It all seems really, really nice. honestly, if I would be happy if it made it changed her personality, or I'm sorry, wow, the translation. If it changed her trait to where all instances of damage triggered her trait instead of just single target attacks. And not just when they're, well, I don't mind it just being injured, but just all instances of damage. I think that would absolutely be phenomenal. And I think it would be also great if it reduced the energy cost of a couple of those passive heals, because they cost 1 energy. And if she doesn't have the energy, she's not doing it. So I really wish that were the case. She could be a mega ultimate awesome auto healer. You know, for all those people that like to auto battle, if that trait came into play and came in and was there. But without those things, it honestly feels kind of lackluster. It's good, it's strong, but it's not game breaking. It doesn't do everything for her that some of these traits are doing for others. And so it's a good trait. Overall, I would rank it tier 2 as mid though. Up next is Iron Law Shield for Tidon. This is a 1-star. It attacks, deal penetrating damage equal to 10% of his physical shield. Each round, the number of alert triggers is increased by 1. That alone, right there at that first rank, is pretty interesting. 10% of his physical shield. I've gotten his physical shield really high. I've gotten it to be up, 7,000 or so. 10% of that, it's not too bad. I'm not upset. You do, 700 damage. At 2 stars, it's now dealing 20% of that physical shield. That's pretty big. Now we're doing 1,400 damage on any of those attacks and so on and so forth. So that's pretty good too. At 3 stars, the attacks now deal 30% of his physical shield value. For each round, the number of alerts is triggered by 1 still. But then specifically, his big alert skill. Not only his big alert skill, but all alert skills can no longer be interrupted. That is massive. If you know, you know. Playing Tidon and his alert skill getting interrupted is annoying. It just is. It's annoying. And so this changes that to where it no longer can be interrupted. He's getting extra proc on the alert. And I'm really eager to test it on his big alert skill, if possible. And by big alert skill, I'm talking about that Shield of Sanction. If it increases the amount of times that procs by 1, it's absolutely massive. This denies a turn, stuns the enemy, and so for it to proc twice is absolutely massive. Moreover, 30% of his physical shield. If he gets his physical shield high enough, let's just use that number 7,000 again. 30% of 7,000, that's 2,100 points of damage piercing. Fantastic. And it's free. This is a unit that now is capable of doing a little bit of damage out there too to those enemies. It's pretty nice. Is it game breaking? No. But is it great? Yes. It does a lot for Tidon. It helps him in a big way. Overall, I think it's pretty impressive. And so for me, those Tidon players, I rank this skill tier 0.5. Up next is Dare to Lead for Xavier. At 1 star, it reduces the cooldown of Spear of Iria by 1 turn when your speed is increased by 100 points or more compared to base stats. It's weird wording. Damage is increased by 10%, and damage received by 10%. Is reduced by 10%. So that Spear of Iria, it gives you a big old speed boost. You're absolutely triggering this. And so it's reducing the cooldown of that and then giving you nice damage boost and damage reduction boost. Good stuff. At 2 stars, you reduce the cooldown of Spear of Iria by 2 turns. And then you're getting that increased damage and damage received by 15% instead of 10. And then at 3 stars, you reduce the cooldown of Spear of Iria by 3 turns. And then when the speed is increased by 100 or more, now your damage is increased by 20% and your damage received is reduced by 20%. This, for me, is pretty massive for Xavier and does a lot for him. I know a lot of people only play Xavier in Clash and so on and so forth. I think there's a place for him outside of that. And I think this is I mean, this is the solo carry, right? He runs in and frags out and kills everyone. Like, it's laughable to me. I play a lot of FPS games like Rust and Tarkov, and I mean, I get it. I understand what they're leaning on right here, and it's funny to me. I think if you're an Xavier player and you like using him, I think this is absolutely great for him. It definitely leans into his playstyle and what he's supposed to do, and really does it well. Reducing those cooldowns of that skill of Spear of Iria, and then making him more dangerous and more resilient is perfect. And if you know, if anybody has this and they're using them in Clash, it's going to make them scary. Honestly, people set up strong Clash defenses. I don't get it. I really just don't. Whatever. You do it, this is going to make them even more nasty, more scary. More power to you. This is a phenomenal skill for Xavier, and for that reason, I rank it a tier 1 on the tier list. And so, there you have it. That is the tier list in its full. As you can see on your screen, make sure you drop down in the comments and let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Some of us play some of these characters more often than others. Someone might be a huge Mytha fan or Samantha fan and think that their unique skills being mid is a wrong opinion and it's egregious. Same with Iggy. Let me know. I'll be more than happy. Maybe you think that my opinion of like Miguel's traits inflated. I'm eager to hear that and see that too. But I'm telling you, those are my opinions. That's what I'm seeing out of it. I can't wait to get your feedback on that. I hope this helps you and feel more confident in your investing in these characters. I know there's some confusion over rank 13 skills right now. There's metas that are trying to be followed and nobody really knows what to do and this, that. Man, play the game your way. These skills are supposed to allow you to lean in on the characters that you like and to play them more effectively and for them to do better. I try to come in from a neutral standpoint and judge how much it actually impacts their gameplay and how viable it makes them in clearing content and or pursuing the game and its activities. And so that is how I've made my assessments and judgments. You tell me what you think based on that, and I can't wait for your feedback. Hopefully this has helped you. With that all said, a huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. I deeply appreciate you. Your support means everything and allows me to make the content, to make the pools, to get the characters, to create the guides, get the information. And yeah, thank you so much for your support. It really means the world to me. If you're interested in our Patreon or our Discord, the links are down below. We'd be more than happy to have you join us. Make sure you click on them where we talk all things sort of Convallaria and then some in our Discord. So please join us. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. I wish you the best in all of your sort of Convallaria adventures. Please take care of yourself. And until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye.